Okay, good evening, my friend. Tonight I just talk about the basement coat, which is the brewing the surface before you paint the major color that you are going to. I think the most of people had already know the knowledge of to paint the surfacer primer, which is um, to make sure that the color you paint is certainly stick onto your model surfacer surface of the model are very nice. In some case you might be used for the very certain fit on the steel part, which is the 18 part, or was different material from the ordinary plastic. Sometimes you use the you know um, sanding the surface of the gaps or some other very little tiny scratches to cover the whole things very nicely. And in my case, I always using the some kind of basement coat before I paint, and which is something like here. I can show you. This is the Mr. Base White 1000. This is lacquer paint, because in Japan the major painting color is basically comes from the lacquer. It's up to the environment situation in the home, but mostly people are very like to use the lacquer color. So um, you know lacquer is pretty effective for painting the plastic model, which is very strong, tough, and you can get many variety of the color you want. Okay, this is the 1500 white. There is a two different type, which is the provided by the Mr. Color. The number of the 1000 means the very nearly meaning of the sanding paper. If you're looking at 1000, the paper itself is a little bit rough. If you see the 1500, the surface itself is more like smooth and very shine if I compare with the 1000. And I just I might choose to 1000 if the if I do a lot of things to sanding, filling the gaps, and remolding whatsoever. I did so much things to figure the whole construction problem, which is like huge gaps, small gaps, to make sure that whether the panel line is fine or not, to find the other problem by using the very thick 1000 surfacer. However, the problem that to use the 1000 is too thick and too rough, so I don't recommend you to use the such small kind of scale, which is like 1 over 40i72, it has a very, little, very tiny and very, very sensitive mode up there. So if you brew the 1000 too much, the whole, things will be covered. So you can see any difference between whether the gaps, whether the panel lines is, still visible or not, right? So mainly this is for using for the major fix to the gaps, to make sure the gaps is, completed, to filling the gaps completed, or if you see, if you do a very serious things, I know I can say, if you do a lot, you need to cover with the very thick to cover. So usually I use the 100, 1000, 500, 1500, right? 1500. 1500 is like it's nearly like preparing for the next step, preparing for the painting the major color you are going to. So this is for the finishing treatment of the basement paint. And sometimes I use the just simple pure white color, which is the finishes foundation white, to make sure that the paint, the color that itself is to make the correct appearance. I mean, I just regulate the color that I prefer to paint before. So I mix a lot. I do my own color, which is like this one is, I put some a little white color and blue, or some, I just create it before I paint to make my own favorite color. But once you paint these kind of colors, something like gray color surface, black color surface, maybe the color itself is not show you exactly what you want. Sometimes if you put the black color and then you bright blue the very sensitive color, which is like yellow or red or whatsoever, maybe the appearance itself is unacceptable. Sometimes you feel, because the appearance is a little bit dark, right? So to avoiding these kind of things, I just always preparing as the white. It's like a white paper, white paper, white base makes the color itself, whatever you paint, the color itself appear exactly you want, exactly you prepare, right? But I put the gray color, maybe there is some kind of difference between the color itself, the color you paint, or your color you just prepare. It's a little bit different appearance, right? I really wanna avoiding these kind of things to make my sense of the color correctly. So this is the major my foundation surface or whatsoever color is always white, not the gray or not the black. But there is one exception. I mean, for example, when I was going to painting the silver color, which is like this one, or some kind of metal color, right? This is the silver, number 8. This kind of paint should be prepared with the very dark and very shine glossy surface. So to make the metal color ability itself is to get to the maximum. So I use the black. This is the very glossy, right? And to make the surface itself is very like to make very shine and glossy and like a wet, right? And then I brew the silver color, metal color. So sometimes I use the different preparation, not only using the white color. Sometimes I use the black color. For example, when I'm using the black color before I paint, it's something like very how do I say? Very complicated area, which is like the inside of the cockpit, or inside of the fuel bay, or the place that you cannot see so much, or the place that the so much dense area makes the many shape, many like shadows it has. So I cannot create the shadows by just single resource of the light. You need to make some kind of very dark side of the shadows to using by the painting, right? And this is pretty lot of things you have to do. So I put the black color first, and then sometimes in a cockpit, for example, in a cockpit I use sometimes I use the green or gray color whatsoever. Brew the green color to make the a little bit black color remain. So which means some part, the corner of the edges will be a little bit toned down. It makes the more like very natural shadows you can create by painting. So in that case, I use the black color to express the natural shadows very easily. You don't have to paint by brush, just So so I use the black color so that purpose sometimes, but usually I use the white color. And I just return to the first talk. When I using the white surfacer, which I introduced you, was pretty like mud. You need to thin the content itself. It's more thin, because if you put the color itself directly into my airbrush, maybe the airbrush will be not work, because the color itself is so mud, so thick. So I prepare some kind of the spare beans, spare bottles, and I just put some surfacer itself into the bottles, and then I mixed with the thinner, because the surfacer itself is pretty thick, so you have to thin to mature level of the using the airbrush. I can't say how much amount of the paint you need, how much amount of the thinner you need. Maybe nearly 10% of the base white surfacer, and maybe 90% of the thinner, or maybe 15%, a little bit more. It's really up to the pressure of the airbrush air. So I can't say exact number of the mixing rate. You need to prepare before you paint to make the color itself, to the surfacer itself is mature level to paint. So sometimes I use the I use the spare bottles, right? And the surfacer is two major method, I think. The first, the color itself stick very nicely, and second, you make sure that you can make sure that the whether the condition of the surface is good or not when you are filling the gaps, restoring some sort of part. You still have some scratches, right? So after you sand it, you need to check whether you don't see any scratches, or some kind of unsatisfied situation. But in my case, I have the third. With very sensitive talk, I can say, if I compare with the things that to paint the major color on the surface, which is not preparing with the surfacer, is a little bit different. Maybe you can find the difference between the surface which is not coated with the surfacer, which is coated the surfacer. I think the sense of the feeling that the color itself is on is sometimes you can see a little bit different. When I am dealing with the very small and sensitive lines to regulate the airbrush, if I paint the surface itself, it's very easy to control It's very difficult to say. Maybe I don't have so much. I can't. You can't see so much difference between, you know. It's only my, maybe it might be only my sense, but I could feel something more comfortable to handle the controlling of the airbrush techniques. Um, the color is very naturally good to on the surface if I put the surfacer, but if I don't, I can see a little bit uncomfortable feeling to control the airbrush when I am dealing with the very sensitive paint, which is the fading, or which is the you know, some kind of different techniques when I was dealing with the airbrush. So if you are not really good at the painting of the airbrush, maybe the problem itself is not up to you sometimes. It's really up to the other method, other environmental problem, which is like the place that you are going to paint is the surface itself is not mature for good result. Okay. So if you are feeling, you know, I'm not good at painting, is a two-way. Maybe you are not good at. You need to practice. But the other way, maybe you can improve the condition of the surface of the surface condition. It makes you a little difference, I think. Especially the weathering task when you are doing with some kind of the oil paint or some kind of other things you are going to. If the surface itself is not mature, maybe the technique itself will be not work so well. For example, if the surface itself is not so flat, it's too glossy. If the surface is too shiny and glossy, perhaps if you are going to doing as the dry brush effect, it cannot work because the surface itself is so flat, so glossy, right? So the color itself is not remain. So at least you need to provide the things to make the effect itself is success, using control of the surface condition. So this time, okay, I blew the silver color. I prepared a very black glossy color before you are going to paint, right? I used the very sensitive blue color. Blue is very sensitive. If you want to get the exact blue color that you want, maybe the surface of the color itself must be white, not black, not yellow whatsoever. So the success for the task, the keys of the success is not only the techniques, as I said. It's always what sort of things you prepare. The preparation is very important. I think the more than the techniques. If the preparation is good, is correct, I think the techniques that you need to very concentrate, you need to have some encourage, you need to have some exercise, will be very close to the success. It's not always your fault, okay? It's sometimes the problem is not only by you. So I just want to say you just you don't have to so hesitate. You don't have to be so shame. Sometimes the environment makes your model, your skill cannot reach the next level. Okay, so see you. Bye bye.